Hey, Marcus House with you here, and there has been loads of news this week. Starship development is just going crazy right now, so much to cover there. The Solar Orbiter took flight the other day, so we're going to look a little more into the future of that incredible mission. New Starlink news dropped this week as well, along with Crew Dragon progress and SpaceX announcements. Then to top all of that off, I've finally got a little news of my own to share.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
On Monday, the Solar Orbiter launched aboard an Atlas V 411 rocket from Cape Canaveral. Now, the 411 tells us that the Atlas was configured with a 4-metre fairing, one solid rocket motor mounted on one side of the booster, and one RL-10 Centaur engine. Because there is just that single SRB, the rocket almost looks as if it power slides off the launch pad. It's quite an unusual configuration, but not that uncommon. I believe there's been around 6 other launches of that 411 configuration. So yes, congratulations to United Launch Alliance for another incredible launch. This is an amazing European Space Agency-led mission in partnership with NASA, and we're going to learn a bunch from this vessel. The Solar Orbiter carries a set of 10 instruments for imaging the surface of the Sun, and in this mission there are loads of gravity assists involved to place the orbiter into an elliptical orbit around our Sun, bringing it as close as 42 million kilometres away from the Sun's surface, which is a little over a quarter of the distance between the Sun and the Earth. That is a lot further away than, say, the Parker Solar Probe, which will be swooping in right down to 4 million miles of the Sun's surface. The Solar Orbiter's goal isn't so much to get close, it's to research areas of the Sun we've never been able to see before, and we'll be seeing regions of the Sun previously hidden. Most importantly here, the vessel will be able to position itself in such an orbit that the instruments will have a great view of the Sun's poles, and this will allow scientists to get a better understanding of what processes creates various solar wind effects that can cause issues here on Earth. What's most interesting to me is how they're going to put the Solar Orbiter into this orbit. The Earth is screaming around the Sun at just under 30 kilometers per second. There is no rocket big enough or powerful enough to put the Solar Orbiter into its destination orbit without some help from an awesome little trick with gravity assists. This animation here from ESA shows the intended trajectory of the Solar Orbiter around the Sun. First, we eject from the Earth's sphere of influence in a retrograde direction. That, to start with, looks to bring the perihelion down under the point of the orbit of Mercury, which is the point that the vessel will be closest to the Sun. In late 2021, it will do gravity assists around Venus and one around the Earth to essentially change the solar orbiter's inclination, which will place it into a resonance with Venus, and that allows it to return to the planet's vicinity every few orbits. Each time it swings by, it gets a specific kick by Venus to alter the tilt of its orbit around the Sun. In this video by the European Space Agency, you can see that passes bump up that tilt angle quite significantly each time. Just as one example, the 2025 encounter with Venus here will increase the inclination by around 16 degrees or so. Each gravity assist will allow all instruments to get a much better view of the polar regions of the Sun's surface. The upcoming work being done here by the Solar Orbiter and of course the Parker Solar Probe is super important, and being able to measure data from this inclined orbit will give us some very unique data. The more we learn about the solar wind and mass ejections, the better we can detect upcoming issues and protect technology and astronauts in future missions. Now, the next Starlink launch is coming up very soon, which is going to be sending up the next batch of 60 satellites on the Falcon 9 rocket. It will be the 5th Starlink mission and should be very similar to the previous launches. Again, it's expected that the flat-packed satellites will be deployed at around 290 kilometers in altitude. That will bring the total number of satellites up to around 300 in total, and this number is going to keep growing very fast, with a launch estimated to go up every few weeks throughout this year. This is really incredible stuff. A booster landing should take place once again on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. That's always a mission highlight. The footage from last launch was incredible, even if it did hit the deck just a little hard. Great shots here by Richard Angle show the booster after it arrived back, with the legs there opened a little more than usual. Julia here captured some great shots of repairs going on with the drone ship prior to it being sent back out for the next catch, so I'm not sure how much damage had occurred there or whether it was really just more routine maintenance. Now, speaking of Starlink, it looks like Elon Musk is rolling out plans to open Starlink to the public, giving investors a chance to buy into what I think could be a game changer for internet service around the world. SpaceX's Chief Operating Officer Gwen Shotwell said that right now they are a private company, but Starlink is the right kind of business that we can go ahead and take public. Now, I know in the past Elon Musk has been quite reluctant to have SpaceX go public like what's been done with Tesla, because there's a lot of public financial reports and scrutiny that comes along with being public. I'm interested to know what investors out there think of this opportunity if it does come to pass. I'm certainly no expert, but this news certainly seems to be creating quite a buzz around right now. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know what you think in the comments. Now, if you would like to know a little more about Starlink in general, I've got a much more in-depth video about that here. This network is going to be massive. While you're here, of course, please do consider subscribing, as there's loads of news coming up with Starship and Crew Dragon to share with you. Over to Boca Chica with Starship development, and it's been a massive week for SpaceX here. On Monday, this barrel section was flipped over prior to ring stacking operations. Steel rings have been created like crazy recently, which is great to see. The number they're pumping out here now seems to be increasing quite rapidly. This section of the Starship is looking incredible compared to the earlier Mark I version. Much smoother and more refined. You can see this worker disappearing inside the section here, and I tell you, when you look at some of these images close up, you can really start to understand the massive scale of this beast. Another example of this is the truck transporting the tapered section here to the windbreak structure. All of these components are just ginormous. During the week, we've seen the workers seem to be installing some components of what I think is the upcoming autogenous pressurization system. It'll be interesting to see if this is indeed what they're looking at here, as it isn't 100% clear to me how this is all going to evolve. I'm actually wondering if we'll start seeing some thrusters appearing soon, and I'm fairly certain that most of what we see here will be hidden away by raceway covers and the fins at some point. So much has already happened with this build. It's amazing to think that SpaceX was only just finalizing the test tanks a few weeks back. When we watch the progress here, you can't help but feel that we've been watching a pivotal point in human history. This could well be the very start of something quite incredible. Reducing the cost of space with this fully reusable Starship could transform humanity in ways hard yet to comprehend. The initial test flights to Mars may not be as far away as you think, and based on the speed SpaceX are moving here, there really is no telling how close that could be. Thank you as always, of course, to BOCACHICAGAL and NASASpaceflight for providing this incredible raw window into the development process. A link to the channel is in the description just in case you're not already subscribed. They're releasing videos on this topic almost daily at this point. Of course, there's also plenty going on with general construction at the site itself. The new windbreak structure is still climbing upwards, with the third level kicking off this week. Certainly seems like it's going to be a very tall vehicle assembly building by the time it's all done. Interestingly, they also look to be deconstructing parts of the Starhopper here. I'm not sure if they're planning on removing the legs completely. As far as I'm aware, they're still planning to use the Starhopper as an engine test stand. I'm thinking they probably don't need the legs, as I'm assuming it'll probably be ending up directly on top of the test stand near the tank farm somewhere. What do you think? Are they going to rip Starhopper's legs off? I'll miss seeing that little beauty sitting there at the site, but it's probably about time to put it to some use. Another great piece of news for SpaceX dropped the other day with the announcement that they have just employed the former leader of NASA's human spaceflight program. There is huge experience coming into SpaceX here, and I think we can most certainly assume Bill is going to play a big part in Crew Dragon and Starship development. In total, he has had a 4-decade career with NASA and has worked on programs such as the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station. He really is one of the world's top minds when it comes to human space flight. You do have to wonder if he wasn't fond of his new role after being demoted last July, previously of course being the Associate Administrator. Regardless, he is going to be a hugely beneficial employee for SpaceX, so exciting news there. Quite a lot of interesting news this week on Crew Dragon as well. Eric here tweeted out some interesting information saying that the Dragon is in good shape and that the working date for SpaceX's Demo 2 launch is in early May. Now, he did also mention that this launch date is still fluid and that the mission may move forward into late April or push further into May, depending on a number of factors unrelated to hardware. Interestingly, he did also add that there is no final decision yet on the duration of the mission, which we're all waiting to hear about. I suspect the mission will be extended with some added objectives, but we'll just have to see how all of that plays out. The Crew Dragon went through some final electromagnetic interference testing at the Hawthorne factory as shared by SpaceX on Twitter. This is one of the last tests needed for full certification to fly with Crew, and before it departed the factory to head to the launch site in Florida, SpaceX also snapped this great shot of the employees looking super excited there in front. What an amazing achievement for everyone involved there, yet another step closer to returning human spaceflight capabilities to the United States. Not long to go now until we see this baby fly. On the flip side, of course, Boeing recently mentioned that they needed to correct a software flaw that could actually have caused the Starliner service module to run into the crew capsule prior to re-entry and landing. This comes after the issues we already know about, most famously the timer offset problem that stopped the Starliner firing its thrusters correctly to reach the designated orbit. It also seems that if the initial issues had not occurred, Boeing would likely not have stumbled on the second glitch before Starliner came back to Earth. So in a way, this has been kind of lucky, as the potential was there for Boeing to have completely lost the vehicle. Now, back on the 7th of February, NASA and Boeing said that they'd made no decision about whether a second uncrewed orbital test flight of the vessel would be needed, which kind of blows my mind, to be honest. I mean, I really want to see the Starliner succeed, but there was just too many issues to gloss over here. Successful testing of the Starliner needs to prove that it can safely transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station, and they've not yet proven that this is possible. The test mission was incomplete, plagued by ascent issues, and then it failed to make it to the International Space Station to test out that docking process and all of the things based around that. So I'm assuming NASA will make what seems to me to be the obvious decision to fly another test flight. But yes, let me know what you think. In other news, the White House is proposing to increase NASA's budget, providing a reasonably significant funding boost for the Artemis program, aiming to land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024. NASA's administrator Jim Bridenstine is very excited about these plans, saying that the proposal is worthy of 21st century exploration and discovery. Now, whenever I talk about NASA's plans with SLS and Orion, I tend to get a bunch of comments from those against the Space Launch System. Now, personally, I can't wait to see this monster fly. Yes, I know it's not reusable, it's very expensive, but every step, no matter who takes it, puts the human race on a trajectory for that moon base and afterwards, of course, to Mars. Now, to me, this is the most inspiring thing we can do as a human race. Do I hope SpaceX's Starship makes all other vehicles pretty much redundant? Sure, but I don't believe that this makes the engineering effort of the SLS wasted. I'm a huge fan, personally, of the RS-25 engine as well, which are essentially the same engines used on the Space Shuttle. And just because these are an older design, that doesn't mean they're not brilliant. These massive beasts burn liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen and are one of the most efficient engines in the world, beaten only, I think, by upper stage engines or low thrust engines. So yes, I can't wait to see this thing take off. Now finally, I am very proud to announce for the first time that I've finally gotten off my backside and organised a Patreon support site here at patreon.com/MarcusHouse. Firstly, I'd like to thank the initial patrons that have already shown their support by signing up. It kind of blows my mind that you've already stumbled on this before I even announced it, but there you go. I just wanted to kick off doing a few exclusive live streams with the patrons, which is something I've not done a great deal before. If anything, you might find it fun to watch me potentially mess that right up. Now, everything you do to help support me, whether it be watching these videos, subscribing and sharing this content, is all very much appreciated, so thank you. Those that would like to take it to that next level on Patreon here and interact with me more directly via the included exclusive roles in Discord, just know that you are quite literally turning this dream of mine from a hobby into something financially viable, and I can't thank all of you enough for that. So if you would like to be a part of this, consider joining us, and I hope to chat to you all soon. Of course, a massive thank you to my quality control squad here for helping me research and proof the material for these videos. If you're interested in these topics and would like to be a part of this, follow me on Twitter and please do get in touch. In the tile in the bottom left today, we have my video last week talking about the incredible achievements coming up for SpaceX in 2020, so check that out. In the top right is my latest video, and in the bottom right, content that YouTube has selected from my channel just for you. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.